Hey guys, this is Should You or Should You, the show where we talk about books and whether or not you should read them. And today's episode is about an author that I mentioned in my last video about 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. And it's a rather newer author to the scene, and his name is Jeff Vandermeer, and the book is called Annihilation, which is a really interesting title. It's a fitting time to sort of release this review because the actual movie based on the book is coming out either this week or next week, and it stars Natalie Portman, and it looks really, really cool. So if you're thinking about a movie to see this weekend or next weekend, check out Annihilation. If anything, it promises to be an interesting ride because the book is exactly that. It's an interesting ride. I've read this book very quickly. It's relatively short, about 185 pages, and it's one of those books where when you pick it up and start reading, really, really hard to put down. I'm the kind of person who likes to kind of read, a couple chapters the night before bed or downtime at work or whatever the case is. And if I give myself a limit, I'm more than likely going to surpass that because it's just really hard to put down. So a little bit about the author first. Jeff Vandermeer actually grew up in the Fiji Islands, which is pretty interesting. And so when you're reading this book and you're reading a lot about the plants and things like that, you'll kind of feel that or hear that a little bit in his writing. But he lives in Tallahassee with his wife now, relatively new author. And this book, Annihilation, is the first book of 3 in what's called the Southern Reach trilogy. This particular book picks up on a group of women, actually, and they are hired by this company called the Southern Reach. Actually, they're not hired, they have to volunteer for this, and there's a lot of waivers they've had to sign, and so you can assume this is sort of a dangerous mission. But the company's very secretive about giving them any details about the expedition, any concrete detail. If you're familiar with the Resident Evil story, whether you're a fan of the video games or the movies, you'll be familiar with the Umbrella Corporation. And to me, the Southern Reach is sort of like that Umbrella Corporation. Not that they're exactly the same in any way, so don't think that, but just in the sense that you get the feeling that there's something not quite right, that they're not quite the good guys. And that kind of is a theme that comes back throughout the story when they find out, the group of women, when they find out that there's a lot of information being withheld from them. So anyway, what are they doing? Well, this company hires these volunteers to kind of go into what's called Area X. And this particular story follows 4 women. They have a psychologist, a surveyor, a biologist, and an anthropologist. They should have a linguist too, but for whatever reason, the linguist dropped out last minute. You'll notice that I don't give any name of these women. And that's because you don't get a name at all throughout the entire book. There's not a single name in this book. Not even the narrator's husband's name is mentioned. They do that for a reason. The Southern Reach Company, you can tell they're a bunch of scientists. They're studying the reaction of these people in this area. And this area is called Area X. And so the Southern Reach sends this group of women to Area X just to observe. And they're there for a set amount of time, but they're interested in seeing what their observations of the land is, if their temperament changes, things like that. Now, the reason they're doing that is because the groups that they've sent before them, this is the 12th expedition, so as far as they know, there have been 11 others before them, but they've all had weird freak things happen, like, for instance, one of the expeditions ended in mass suicide. Another was very, very violent, where they were all fighting against each other. And some, they come out of it, but they're completely different people, and they die of some odd cancer some 7 or 8 months later. I'm not going to divulge too much of the story because I don't want to give away too much of the big, huge moments of the book, but I'll give you a little bit. The biologist is the narrator, and the biologist actually in the movie is played by Natalie Portman. And she's this kind of loner, really a biologist at heart. She really loves studying small ecosystems. So growing up, she was obsessed with this really crappy pool that was at her parents' house, and she would study the ecosystem and would watch the ecosystem grow. So in this expedition, she is sort of I don't want to say the leader because the psychologist is technically the leader, but in the book, she feels more like the leader because she's featured more. The psychologist, the surveyor, the anthropologist, as you're reading it, all kind of go their own separate ways. But in the beginning, they're all together and they stumble upon what they all view as a tunnel. But the biologist sees it differently. She sees it as a tower. She can't explain why she sees it that way, but she does. And she can't explain why this tower feels like it's alive, but she's noticing the walls moving. She's noticing writing on the wall that's fresh, and it's not ink. It's it's like this thing has inscribed all these things on the wall. You have no idea what's happening. And throughout the whole book, you're kind of like, what is this tower thing? What's the creature in the tower? What does it all mean? Where did all these people go? Where do they come from? It can be confusing at times because it's so hypothetical. It's so, well, what if? Because the whole time, these people have no idea what's going on. They have no idea where they're at. They just know that it's called Area X, and they know people have died going there. The biologist is motivated by her husband's death, and her husband was part of the 11th expedition. And he, unannounced, came home completely changed, a completely different person. And it goes into their relationship in detail and why that's all important. But then the Southern Reach group comes and picks him up, and not a few months later, he's dead because of cancer. But he was fine when he was there. So there's a lot of these things that happen where, our protagonist is like, I don't trust these people. I don't trust the people that are here, and I don't trust this company, and this Area X is crazy. Well, while they're kind of exploring the tower, the biologist gets real close to the wall because she's kind of trying to read what's happening. She's noticing that it's doing weird things, like I said. Well, there's a spore that kind of puffs, right? And she breathes in these spores, but she keeps it quiet because she doesn't know how the other people are going to handle it. Are they going to kill her? She doesn't want to make any type of reactions. She doesn't want to do anything too drastic without knowing how those spores start to affect her. Well, as the story progresses, she starts seeing light. She's full of light, and her senses are heightened, and she can feel herself start to change, but it doesn't feel like bad changes. And so she kind of just goes with it. She doesn't tell them anything like that. Well, things start to happen. She gets separated from the group, starts wandering off through her journey through Area X, through her discovery of this light tower, which plays a huge role in the overall story because she finds some secrets at the light tower. Her body's changing, her senses are changing, things are changing inside of her. In any event, everybody starts kind of going crazy. The anthropologist disappears, and the surveyor and the biologist, who don't really trust each other, don't trust the psychologist more than they don't trust each other, because the psychologist now disappears. So the surveyor and the biologist go down to the tower to kind of investigate and see maybe they went there overnight or whatever. Well, they find the anthropologist in I'll say a suspended state. I won't tell you what happened to her, but they're freaking out, and they think the psychologist has something to do with it because the psychologist disappeared. And when they saw her last, she was in a real frenzy. So the biologist kind of goes to look for the psychologist, and their surveyor starts to kind of lose it. Surveyor's ex-military. She's very tactical, very logical, but she starts kind of losing her wit. And so when the biologist leaves, a ton of really important stuff happen. I'm not gonna tell you what. She comes back, and the surveyor is trying to actively kill her. She's completely lost it. I'm not gonna tell you what happens or what Area X is, but what I can tell you is think sort of Stranger Things. And if you're familiar with Stranger Things, you're familiar with the Upside Down, which is sort of like another dimension within our reality. And you can think of Area X as the Southern Reach, somehow by accident, we don't know really, opening up a gate to this other dimension. Weird shit's happening. Weird shit's taking place. It's a crazy read. I highly recommend if you're a sci-fi fan, if you're a fan of suspense and things like that. I want to read you the back cover of this book because it probably explains it a little bit better than I could. Area X has been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. Nature has reclaimed the last vestiges of human civilization. The first expedition returned with reports of a pristine Edenic landscape. The second expedition ended in mass suicide, and the third in a hailed gunfire as its members turned on one another. The members of the 11th expedition returned as shadows of their former selves. Like I said, her husband was part of that expedition, and within weeks had all died of cancer. In this book, we joined the 12th expedition. The group is made up of 4 women, which I've told you about, and their mission is to map the terrain, to record all the observations of the surroundings and of one another, and above all, avoid being contaminated by Area X. So that's kind of why her breathing the spores is sort of a big deal. They arrive expecting the unexpected, and Area X delivers, and oh my god, does it deliver. But it's the surprises that come across the border with them when they leave, and the secrets the expedition members are keeping from one another that change everything. It's an original and beautiful piece, magnificently written, great writer. It's a really cool story, and that's really the gist of it. If you've been thinking, should I read these books, the Southern Reach trilogy? It's kind of a big commitment, and I don't know anything about this Jeff Vandermeer guy. I will tell you, if you like sci-fi, pick it up, read it. It's an awesome story, very well written. And the cool thing is, there's 2 other books that I haven't even read yet. I have the second one, and I'm getting ready to start it, but I figured since the movie is coming out so soon, I should talk to you guys a little bit about Annihilation and all that good stuff. So should you or should you? Well, of course you should. You should definitely read Jeff Vandermeer's Annihilation. It's an incredible book. You'll have a lot of fun doing it. You won't want to put it down, and it'll keep you wanting to go back to Area X, to go back to that territory, to that terrain. That's all I have for you guys. Please, if you dig the video, if you dig the last video, if you want to see more videos, subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think. Comment on the video. Shoot me a like. Shoot me a dislike. Tell me to quit. I don't care what you do. Just do it. I'm Mike Vaughan. This has been Should You or Shouldn't You.